Yeah, I want to be a jockey when I grow up. I'm down for Heathfield and south of Manor. We are going to Africa and try and teach people.
I don't think you want to go to university if you want to be an astronaut. I'd like to find out all about the moon and all that.
Is it important to fly? Yes. I want to be a jockey when I grow up. Yeah, I want to be a jockey when I grow up.
Tony was already an apprentice at Tommy Gosling's racing stables in Epsom when he left school at 15.
This is a photo finish when I rode at Newbury. I'm the one with the white cap. I was beating a length and half a third and I had a photo finish. So I took it out of the box and kept it as a souvenir.
What will you do if you don't make it as a jockey?
I don't know. If I knew I couldn't be one, I'd get out of the game. Wouldn't bother.
Well, what do you think you would do then?
Low on taxes.
Tony didn't make it as a jockey. He had 3 races, wasn't placed, and gave it up. At 21, he was doing the knowledge, learning to be a London cabbie.
I will be a cab driver, and I know I will. And I'm going to prove every person who think I can't be a cab driver wrong. And I'm going to get that badge and I'm going to put it right in their face, just to tell them how wrong they can be and how underestimated I am.
It's surprising who you pick up, you see. I once met Kojak, I picked him up, and Warren Mitchell, Alf Garnett, you know. And I said, oh, hello, Warren, how are you, mate? Good to see you. So he ends up saying, I want to go to Langhams Brasserie, you know, Stratton Street, Langhams. So I'm halfway there, I said, listen, I said, Warren, you wouldn't... I said, it wouldn't be you if you don't sort of come out with Alf, you know. I mean, let's see how he's going, you know. So straight away, he's brought Alf Garnett to life in the back of my cab. So we're on the way to Langhams, you know. All I can hear is Alf Garnett, you know. It's the Labour government and you're lot up here. And when we get there, I said, like, thanks, Warren, terrific, mate. 180. So he gave me exactly 180. Listen, I said, I know you're Alf Garnett, I know you're having trouble, sort of like, I said, but I want you to become Warren Mitchell now, like, my tip's sort of like 20 odd pence or whatever. And he said, son, as in Alf Garnett still, you know Alf's doing bad at the moment, I can't afford it. He walks away, I'm like, you've done me like a kipper.
What does it take to be a good cabbie?
I think myself, happy-go-lucky character, and to take as much as what any other person couldn't take in a normal job, because it's a big world out there and everyone's a different character I pick up. Their attitudes, some of them, like the city gents, the typical Waterloo driver, please, in 5 minutes. I sort of say, hold on, mate, I'll get my helicopter out of the boot. I love being a taxi driver, I like the outdoor life, the independence. There's no one to govern me to say, like, you've got to be in at a certain time.
Sometimes on Saturday morning I go to the pictures. Sometimes with my friends and sometimes with him. You don't. I do. You don't. I don't ever see you. You go to different pictures.
Have you got a girlfriend?
Nope.
Would you like to have a girlfriend?
Nope.
You understand 4Fs? Find them, feed them, and forget them. With the other F, I'll let you use your own discrimination. I mean, this one, I tried to do the 3Fs, but I couldn't forget her.
I used to work in a pub just on a Friday nights, barmaiding. and then from there one night I went to a discotheque. He was in the pub earlier on, and that afterwards we went to a discotheque and Tony was down there. And that was it. Couldn't get rid of him.
Be round honey, you know.
And why did you fall in love with him?
Don't know.
I don't know how. I don't know how you put up with me for so long.
I don't know. Sometimes I don't know how I stand him.
But what is it that you love
I like
about
his
him?
personality. It doesn't matter who it is, he don't change for nobody.
There's only one ambition, and really, I want a baby son, and if I see my baby son, that is my ambition fulfilled. No one knows that, only you now.
We've got 2 children. Nikki's 6.5, Jodie's 2.5, nearly 3, and I'm having another one in March.
Who looks after them, or do you share it out?
Me, basically, yeah. He does take them out quite a lot, but telling offs and smacks, it's all left to me. I have to do all that. He don't like smacking them. He don't like telling them off. Unless it's really, really...
Anything serious.
Serious, then he would.
Yeah, see that baby one?
So what advantages do you think you've had over some of the other people that we filmed?
Well, academically, probably they've had more advantages over me, aren't they? The fact they've had prep schools at a very early age, you know, they've benefited by it, which, you know, it tells obviously in this film. But as far as, you know, the stability in the backgrounds with their parents, they've missed out on that.
Tone, I don't like them near me.
Come on.
Have a piece of bread each. Hey, Jodie. Jodie.
Being in the prep school, they're missing the love and the care what every East End always gets, you know, gives their children each time they come home from work. And the parents, you know, sometimes obviously not going to be there because they're away at prep school. They're missing the love and affection, you know, what they're craving for. When my kids are growing up, I want to see the change in them all the time. So I have my own memories of when I was a kid and how they were, you know, what they were like.
Would everybody please sit round now, get on with their work. I don't want to see any backs to me. Shouldn't be anybody turning round. Tony, do you hear as well? Get on with your work in front. Tony, don't turn round again.
Education is just a thing to say my son is higher than him or my son had a better background than him. I mean, I'm as good or even better than most of them people, especially on this programme. I mean, I'm one of the tail enders. You think, oh, the East End boy, you know, and he ain't got a no good education. But all of a sudden, the East End boy's got a car, motorbike, and he goes to Spain every year and whatever. And have I worked for it? No, I'm here putting bets on. You think, how does he do it? And there's a boy who is in Eton or whatever. He's studying to be a professor. He's making up the things. Where's the education? There's no education in this world. It's just one big rat race and you've got to kill your man next year to get in front of him. Education, when I said there's no education, yes, there is an education. I made a great mistake in saying that. But I didn't mean to say there's no education as far as academically. Yes, there is. The area, the environment and education makes a person have more opportunities in this world. You know what I mean? That's obvious.
Let's talk about the kids. Do you want for them what you had for yourself in terms of schooling and everything?
You're talking about my childhood, 5 years old, upwards to 7, 8, 9. I had no money. My father had no money. My brother's closed for 10 years. His hand-me-downs are sort of going on my arms with holes in, you see. I've never had any opportunities to better myself because I was a kid. I never knew no better. And my mum and dad, you know, my dad's got ill health, you know, he couldn't work. I'm not making, you know, a violin story out of this. I mean, that's the way it was. And I'm more stronger. It happened that way. I mean, I'm a more stronger person. I appreciate things more now. And now I'm in a position, through my job, you know, to give my kids the life I never had, like lovely clothes. I go to holidays, you know, I go to Portugal, I go to Spain, hopefully America next year. I mean, I want everything I never had to go, you know, on my kids. To say that, you know, let them know the benefits of the nice life, what it's all about.
The Prussians, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. They're nuts. Just have to touch them.
Yeah, they can get what they want, can't they? They've all got to work for it. And it's them who can just ask for money and get it. They can buy what they want.
I've learned through driving a cab that people are individuals, whatever they are, upper class or, you know, middle class or, as in my case, you know, East Ender. But I'm only glad, you know, that I found out the difference at an early age, so I can judge people on what they are rather than who they are. I'm not a politician, so let them worry about what's coming for the next day.
All I understand is dogs' prices, girls, knowledge, road, streets, squares, and mum and dad and love. That's all I understand, that's all I want to understand.
Why the one cool the night?
4.5 50s, 40.
At 21, he was earning a bit extra as a bookies runner at Hackney Wick.
What do they call you here?
I reckon a pest, something like that. I don't mean to make a nuisance of myself. I mean, it's for the other patrons of the place. I mean, they wouldn't want to see a little boy nipping between the feet, running, putting a bet on here for a face. You understand? They think, God, what's he doing? Is he mad? I mean, I walk up there and I order the teas. There could be 8 people in front of me. I just go, can I have a tea, please? Tea, please, 5 times. Tea, please, tea, please. And they've got to serve me before them to get rid of me. You understand? So that's how you got to do it. I'm in 2 golf societies, and each month, all the members of each society meet to play a game of golf.
And who are the guys you play with?
Well, they're mostly publicans or taxi drivers, you know. And we always end up, you know, having a small bet.
Do you like the whole social side of it?
Only with my mates, because on a golf course it becomes very snooty type, you know. I mean, I understand they've got to pay £400 a year membership. And they don't, you know, really want people without any etiquette to go on a golf course and ruin their so-called golf course, right?
It's good. Great shot. Great shot.
It does get a bit a pain sometimes, you know, when they keep saying, excuse me, sir, are you a member? You know, it comes out like that. But obviously, etiquette's etiquette, so you've got to conduct yourself on these type of courses.
Because I think you're a bit smaller than most people, you try to hit the ball hard. You've got to just hit a git there.
Where'd you go, Ken?
I'm over here. Oh, I missed that one.
Unlucky. Keep hold of her.
It's about an 8.
Too much, mate, too much.
No, it ain't. No. It's only an 8.
Yeah.
It's definitely
no,
an 8.
Too much club, Ken.
8,
It's a
9,
9.
an 8.
No, Ken, it's a 9, mate.
What are you going to hit then?
9, I think that's about right.
No, go on then. If you're at a 9, then it's to the right.
It's on, don't I?
That's it. That's perfect. Great shot. That's a great shot.
Now, I am a young fella, and I come to you, and I heard you're a big, successful taxi driver, and I say to you, yes, I
I've
think
been a film extra now for 6 years. It may not go no further. I mean, I'm just having acting lessons.
Well, you give me the benefit of all your experience.
Right.
All right, now, you've got to feel pretty big, bigger than me.
Just go.
Right, here we go.
Tell me, son, what do you want to be a cab driver for, mate?
Well, make a lot of money, you know, have a good life.
Son, look at me. He said, I may be a successful businessman. He might have the suit, I might have the all the holidays in Spain every year, but son, it's hard work out here,
Come on,
mate.
you're not reaching me yet.
Not getting to
No,
me.
you're not getting to me, all right? Now, be bigger, dominate me, all right?
Son,
Yeah?
son, it's a big world out there, and obviously I can't get into it, Brian.
All right, don't worry, don't
When I was
worry, just
in the
take
Sweeney and when I was in Churchill, like the wilderness years, I see the actors and I thought, like, you know, it's not quite easy to act on stage because it's, you know, you need time and dedication. It's very hard. Son, tell me, why do you want to be a taxi driver?
Well, you know, you got success.
Don't let looks go on impressing. You know what I mean? Listen, you want
What
to be
excites you about acting?
Forget it. I like it. I mean, I think to myself, you know, like I can do that, and I still want to have a go of it. I mean, nothing for sort of fame and fortune or anything like that. You know, like big Hollywood and bright lights. It's nothing like that. Just a sideline.
So what drives you then through all these various ambitions?
It's a philosophy of not keeping still. I mean, I'm a very overactive type of person. I mean, I like to feel that I don't want to keep still. Because life, you know, don't wait for nobody. So you've got to cram it in as much as you can before your days are numbered. I mean, I'm made to be a happy-go-lucky type of fella, which I am. I'm EastEnder, which the attitude is, hello, mate, all right, how are you, type of thing. And I wouldn't want to lose that.
How long are you going to be a cab driver? Is this what you want to do for the rest of your life?
Well, at the moment, I'm very happy in driving a cab. But my wife and I always considered owning our own pub. So obviously, I think within 2 or 3 years, once I get financially straightened out, I'm going to have a go at being a publican. And if I don't like it, say if I give it a go for a year or even 6 months, if I don't like being a publican, I'm in a good position to say, well, I'll get rid of the pub and go back to taxi driving. I don't want to change, because if I change, and proves the other Tony Walker was all fake. $55 to 20, Boris.
What are the best times for you?
Well, two really. The best time was when the kid's first baby was born. The next one, obviously, Jodie. But my greatest fulfilment in life, when I rode at Kempton, in the same race as Lester Piggott, I was a naive, wet-behind-the-ears apprentice. And the governor told me, "You've got to ride, son. Friday, you've got to lose X amount of weight," which I did, £8 in 4 days. And he says, like, I go in there and they're all there, you know. I'm part of it. All my years, from 7, all my ambition is fulfilled in one moment. When the long fella come out and I'm in with him, like, in the starters calling out to register the names. And you can sort of go like, Piggott, draw, 8, Walker, draw, sort of 10. And your idol, like, you're there and the big man's there, you know what I mean? Money in the whole world couldn't buy that proudest day of my life, which my ambition fulfilled to the highest level. And I eventually finished last, tailed off obviously, but it didn't make any difference to me. Just to be part of it, be with the man himself. Couldn't buy it. That was the proudest day of my whole life.
Well, I'll go into Africa and try and teach people who are not civilised to be more or less good.
No, I don't want to be a missionary because I just can't talk about it to people. You know, I'm interested in it myself, but I wouldn't be very good at it at all.
Chris Awalabi.
Yes, sir.
Momin Ali.
Yes, sir.
Kaiser Mia.
Yes, sir.
Oscar Ali.
Yes, sir.
Nazrul.
Yes, sir.
Sultan.
Yes, sir.
Abdul Kaya. I was working in an insurance company at the time, and I decided to go into teaching without any experience at all. And I didn't think they would allow somebody to walk in off the street into a classroom.
6 times 3 is 18, shared by 2 is 9, plus 7 is 16, so you put a 16 there.
They were crying out for maths teachers. They interviewed me. They phoned me up the next day and said, would I like the job? I said yes. Within 5 weeks, I was in a classroom. They took one look at me and thought it was Christmas, I think.
Okay, so once you're done, all right.
What's the most enjoyable thing about teaching?
Just being a part of pupils' advancement and learning and watching them understand more and being more confident. Them getting some enjoyment and satisfaction from mathematics.
After working in the city for 3 years, Bruce started teaching at Tony's old school in the East End of London. He lives in a local council flat, within walking distance of the school.
Walden, let's have the present tense of that, sir.
Vesto, vestas, vest. Vestat. Vestamus, vestomatus, vestat.
Yeah, speak up.
They don't sort of enforce being upper class and things like that at St Paul's. You know, they suggest that you don't have long hair, and they do get it cut and they teach you to be reasonably well-mannered, but not to sniff on the poorer people.
When we filmed him at 21, Bruce was in his last year at Oxford reading maths.
And by Eisenstein, you can show that this is irreducible. Then you do a transformation on this polynomial x equal to t plus 2.
Good, that's a nice way of doing it, particularly using Eisenstein down here. His test is very powerful.
Yes.
20, 21, 22, 23, 24.
And to here, 25. Right, so if you think it costs you 25, now you're not going to...
It's so different from your own education where you're teaching now. Why?
General education is better for society, I think. Public schools are divisive. That's with no statement about my education. My education was academically excellent, and I was very grateful for it.
Do you understand the game?
I think there is a class society, and I think public schools may help its continuance.
So you're in the lead, you see, because DSE cabs has got a profit of £2 and good B cabs has got no profit at all. Okay? Now, can you explain that just to Abdul, because I want him to understand what it is.
I don't know whether I said, right, I must do something which is against what I have been brought up to do or whatever. I don't know, I've just found something I find rewarding.
I didn't agree with the Conservatives about what they were doing with the black people, you know, racial policy.
Do you have to defend immigration to a lot of people in this area?
Yes, I think you do, but those who say there are too many coming in and so on, I think really are uneducated about the whole question. They should see the positive benefits that they're having in this country and see that as a result of all of this immigration, they're not being denied opportunities. It's not the fault of immigrants that there is unemployment. It's part of a political party's responsibility is to explain that and show people what is a more truthful way of representing the situation.
None of the parties really seem to agree with me. But I think if I had voted, I'd have voted Labour.
I am about the only socialist in my village. And I go into the pub and sort of expect to stand up and defend all socialist policies. Sort of, this is the village socialist, no, village idiot, sorry.
I just see their lack of opportunities for a lot of people. Obviously, unemployment is a great feature in many people's lives and many families' lives. And teaching children, sometimes you wonder what's going to happen to them. It seems to me that the leader of the country at the moment should be one of the most unpopular persons in the country. And yet she gets away with everything. She, as far as I can see, has done lots of damage. And yet nobody can oppose her.
My heart's desire is to see my daddy, who's 6,000 miles away.
I mean, I can remember being happy there. I can remember also being miserable because I can remember crying.
Squad steady!
You know, I always seem to be beaten. I never used to understand why.
Did it give you an overdeveloped sense of authority?
If you look at society in general, I've always probably been on the side of authority, and you know, it's been an education, learning that authority can be bad and can be corrupt.
Squad left foot inward, place! Squad breathing! Well, my girlfriend is in Africa, and I don't think I'll have another chance of seeing her again.
Have you got any girlfriend?
No, not yet. I'm sure it will come, but not yet.
I think I would very much like to become involved in a family, my own family for a start. That's a need that I feel I ought to fulfill and would like to fulfill and would do it well.
I mean, I do think a lot of people think too much about it.
What happened when you burnt your fingers?
I'd rather not talk about it, really. Well, no, but I didn't really mean that. I mean, I didn't mean that I don't want to talk about it. Just, I need quite a long time to think about it, really.
I think I'll possibly get a little serious and don't quite understand the modern sort of way of behaving, the modern manner. I think I'm a little old-fashioned.
Now, at 3 o'clock, I'm going to come and pick you up from art. You'll only have one art lesson. So if your art teacher forgets at 5 to 3, ask her to say we should be packing away now, and I'll come and get you.
So there you were, you went to a posh preparatory school and a major public school into Oxford, and now you're in a council flat teaching in this school in the East End of London. You don't feel any sense of disappointment?
No, because what I am trying to do at the moment and achieve is difficult. It may not sound difficult in the sense that you could sum up what I do quite simply, but behind all that, it is very difficult, and I certainly find it satisfying achieving successes. There may come a time when I decide I can't do it, and that's not necessarily weakness. That may be a strength that you realise you can't do it as well as you would wish.
I think the most important thing in the world is everyone should know about God.
It all springs from loving God and Christ, I suppose. That you try and do that as best as possible and let that lead your actions in life.
Does it sadden you when you meet people who don't believe in
Not
Christianity?
Yes, if they dismiss it casually, if they dismiss it as just being something, well, we know about that. We got a little bit of that at school, and it doesn't really mean very much. Then it does sadden me because it's much, much more than that.
What is it about it that's important to you?
Well, the belief in the belief that in goodness and in love as being two, great positive forces, and that people. Well, just a simple belief like a good act is never wasted. Certainly, you can observe somebody when they're 7 and identify particular things which maybe are then always with them, whatever else happens to them. People possibly say I'm a little innocent at times or naive. I used to get worried about this and think perhaps I ought not to be taken in or deceived, or I'm not talking about love now, I'm just talking about generally speaking. But I feel that's a strength in a way. I think, if they're people who are willing to trust, then, we should be encouraged.
Tommy, do you have any boyfriends, Susie?
Yes.
Tell me about him.
He lives up in Scotland, and I think he's 13. And I'm rather lonely up there because he usually goes to school, but we usually play till about 6:30 when he comes home from school. And then we go in, and then he goes home to do his homework.
Have you got any boyfriends, Susie? What is your attitude towards marriage for yourself?
Well, I don't know. I haven't given it a lot of thought because I'm very, very cynical about it. But then, you get a certain amount of faith restored in it. I got friends and their parents are happily married, and so it does put faith back into you. But me, myself, I'm very cynical about it.
We were friends for about 2 years.
Rupert and Susie were married 5 years ago.
And I think the nice thing was that we knew each other very well before. We knew quite a lot of the faults of each other, which I think is very important.
I don't sort of sit down and think, analyse marriage. It's not something I've had to come up and think about, whether I was going to get married. And I've got no desire to at the moment. I think 20 is far too young. I suppose 22 is considered quite young. I felt it was the right time. I don't see what I would have gained by waiting another 3 years.
What gave you that feeling?
I just felt I was doing the right thing, which, as you said, was extraordinary. When only about 18 months before, I was very anti it. I came to London when I left school after Paris. And at the moment, I could never live in the country. I'm happy down here. The country's nice for 4 days to go for long, healthy walks, but I could never live up there now.
They live in a small village near Bath, where Rupert is a partner in a firm of solicitors.
I had 7 years up in London, I suppose. It was fantastic, but I just had enough. It's a much slower way of life down here. I'd had enough of the rat race.
When I get married, I'd like to have 2 children.
I'm not very children-minded at the moment. I don't know if I ever will be.
What do you think about them?
Oh, I don't like babies.
What was the biggest shocks to you when you suddenly were confronted with a small baby that you had to be responsible for?
Panic set in, I think, that I wasn't going to be able to cope.
Would you like to have a nanny to look after them, or do you want to look after them?
I want a nanny to look after them.
I felt that we'd taken the decision to bring a child into the world, and I feel that I wanted to bring him up, not somebody else. I feel it's my responsibility to start him off. Whether that'll make any difference to how he turns out, I don't know. I just felt I wanted to do it.
Is it everything you wanted?
For the moment, yes. I mean, I don't think I'll have any more for the reason that I will get pleasure out of these two, but I can't see me going on and on and on with sort of 4 or 5 children. I think I feel that I'd want to move on and try and do something else.
When I leave the school, I'm down for Heathfield and South River Manor. And then maybe I may want to go to a university, but I don't know which one yet.
I like to do maybe short-hand typing or something like that.
I left school when I was 16, went to Paris, went to Secretarial College and got a job.
What made you decide to leave school and go to Paris?
I just wasn't interested in school and just wanted to get away.
And why did you choose Paris?
I don't know, it was my parents, really.
Now I got to the stage in my life where I've got to make my own decisions. You've got to learn to fend for yourself one day. I went to prep school boarding when I was 9. Rupert went at 8, and both of us hated it. I hated my prep school. I just feel it's too young to send a child off, and we both feel we'd never send Thomas and Oliver off. Probably maybe till they're 13. I think 8's much too young. So we will definitely keep them at home.
Do you still want to send them in the private sector to school?
I think we will, yes. But as I said, not till they're 13.
Why did you choose the private sector as opposed to the state?
I suppose it's what we had, it's what we know. I think both of us probably were very sheltered. It's only having been abroad that you can appreciate more, that people are very different, cultures are different. But I think as I was growing up, I think probably I was far too sheltered.
What do you think about making this programme?
I just think it's just ridiculous. I don't see any point in doing it.
I've been very lucky up to a certain point, but everyone has their bad times. And I'm only just beginning. I mean, I'm only young, and I'll probably have a lot worse than I've been through now. I mean, when you're a child, you always think how nice it would be to be grown up and independent and things. I mean, there are times when I wish I was sort of 3 again.
It just seems a miracle to me. When I last saw you at 21, you were nervous, you were chain-smoking, you were uptight, and now you seem happy. What's happened to you over these last 7 years?
I suppose Rupert. I'll give you some credit.
Okay. I'm now chain-smoking.
No, I didn't know where I was going at 21. I mean, I suppose I thought I was reasonably happy at 21, but I had no kind of direction, no. I obviously hadn't found what I wanted. I don't think most people have at 21. We're still very, very young.
As a teenager, Susie spent her school holidays on her father's estate in Scotland.
What sort of things do you do?
Ride, swim, play tennis, ping pong. I might play croquet. Something like that.
What about the social life? What's that?
Garden pasture?
Yeah.
It's quite fun.
Well, obviously any child going through their parents splitting up age 14 or at a very vulnerable age, and it does cut you up, but you get over it. It's not. I mean, there was no point in them staying together for me, because it was worse. I mean, the rise and it's worse. And if two people can't live together, there's no point in making yourself.
My father died 3 years ago. It's very hard to describe to somebody how you just take the loss. It is terribly hard, and even now I still can't believe my father's not here. It's still sinking in, I think, even after 2.5 years. He was up in Scotland. It was in that very bad winter of 81, and we were literally snowed in, and I couldn't get out. And it was 3 weeks before Thomas was born, and I wasn't allowed to fly, no airline would take me, and the trains were blocked with the snow, and so I couldn't get there. And I still feel guilty that I didn't try and get myself out of here to go, but you know, when you're told you could endanger a baby's life, you have to rather sit still. The death of one of your close family is probably something you don't ever get over, and it's a different kind of problem than anything else. And it is hard to come to terms with. And it was really last year that it sunk in that he really wasn't around anymore.
What do you want most out of life?
To be happy and get on with life. I mean, I don't want to just sit back and let it always pass. I mean, you don't know how long you've got your life for. I mean, you know, you could be run over by a bus tomorrow, so you've got to make the most of it while you've got it.
Do you have any fears for the future, for yourself?
No, not so much for myself at all. I feel if I was going to have fallen by the wayside, I'd have done it by now. I think probably I'm too staid now to do that. But maybe I'm wrong.
When I grow up, I'd like to find out all about the moon and all that.
At 7, Nick, a farmer's son, was at a one-room village school in the Dales.
And I said I was interested in physics and chemistry. Well, I'm not going to do that here.
At 14, he was going to a Yorkshire boarding school, and at 21 was reading physics at Oxford.
We'll give it a whirl.
So what career are you going to pursue?
It depends whether I'll be good enough to do what I want to really do. I would like, if I can, to do research.
He is now in America, an assistant professor at the University of Wisconsin, earning $30,000 a year.
The gas in these experiments is at a temperature comparable with that of the sun, whereas in a power reactor it would be maybe 10 times the temperature of the sun. And we're trying to induce that gas to fuse. And the fusion reaction gives off energy and produces the power that would be turned into electrical energy and sent out to the consumer.
How hot is it in there?
In there, it's at about 10 million degrees.
Nick is a nuclear physicist. He is using these high temperatures to fuse atoms, to try to produce energy which is free from radioactivity.
Have to be precisely coordinated with the plasma decay.
I finished my degree in physics and I went on to do a PhD. And having got the PhD, so it took 2.5 years to get that, which was relatively quick, I went to work at the United Kingdom Atomic Energy Authority's Culham Laboratory, which is where they do fusion research. And that is what I've been aiming to do throughout my PhD. But I found when I got there that I got a big shock when I found that my standard of living went down when I started work. So when some people here offered me a job, I thought this might be a good opportunity to go somewhere else where the research environment was a bit more vigorous. So I came here in November of 1982 into a blizzard. The university is substantially different from an English university for several reasons. It's a much bigger university. Oxford had 10,000 people, this has 40,000 people. I guess the mixture of people who come here are different. A far bigger fraction of the population go to university here. Oxford is full of people who really are trying to prove something, I suppose, or be something. A lot of people with social or intellectual pretensions. You're less aware of that sort of thing here. On the other hand, the American system is much more like the comprehensive system in England would set out to try and be. It takes many more people and gets a huge section of the population to a level where they're really technically very competent and can go out and make Silicon Valley work.
Do you have a girlfriend?
I don't want to answer that. I don't answer those kind of questions.
I thought that one would come up because when I was when I was doing the other one, somebody said, what do you think about girls? And I said, I don't answer questions like that. Is that the reason you're asking it? Yeah, I thought so.
The best answer would be to say that I don't answer questions like that, but I mean, you know, it was what I said when I was 7, and it's still the most sensible, but I mean, what about them?
Nick was only 17 when I first met him, and I knew he was a nice person. I find him very attractive, and he uses his intelligence in his relationship with me, which is very important. A lot of people can be very bright.
Nick and Jackie met when they were students at Oxford. Jackie is doing a postgraduate course in business studies.
And Nick does.
And what about you, Nick? Why did you marry Jackie?
Because I find her attractive. She's bright and independent, and...
I mean, if you'd been somebody who had fixed ideas of a woman's role in marriage that meant dinner on the table at 6 every evening...
didn't I tell you about that?
I think we would have had problems, or if one of us had not wanted children.
When I grow up, I'd like to find out all about the moon and all that.
Where did you get all this brain power?
All this brain power? I don't know. Did it just happen? All this brain power? That's a hard one to answer, because first I have to accept that I've got all this brain power. And that's not the sort of thing I tend to go around saying. But I've always been interested in, from a very early age, in technical or scientific things. When I was very young, I had a big picture book about the planets, and I thought this was wonderful. And I've just been interested in that sort of thing and reading technical or scientific material for a long, long time. I was the only child of my age in my village, but I managed to spend my time talking to adults who were around. If one is wandering down a country lane, there's an awful lot to look at in the world around you. I remember looking at various natural phenomena and being intrigued to try and understand what made them tick. One time I was particularly wrapped up in how a particular cloud, which was very unusual shape, and how did that work? And that was the sort of thing that made me want to go further into natural sciences. I think that if I'd been in a city, I probably would have had more interaction with people and might have developed more skills in dealing with other kids. Trying to become a reasonably well-adjusted person was, for me, a bit of a struggle for a while, and I was given a fantastic opportunity when I went to university, and that really saved my bacon.
They'd like to come out for a holiday in the country when I like to have a holiday in the town.
No, I've been to Leeds a couple of times, and I haven't been to Manchester. I went to London with the other when you did the first programme, but that's the only time I've been.
What attracts you about America?
It's an exciting place to be. There's a lot going on in terms of research and other things, but I really came here to do research, but there are more opportunities and just a general feeling of more going on than I had previously. The place is less hidebound, it's less bureaucratically tied down, so it's much easier to go out and get things done than in England.
Do you get lonely here?
You just tend to get stuck into your everyday routine and you don't think about it. But when you call home, then you realize how far away you are. And now it seems acute because both our families are getting older. Even if you think in terms of seeing them once every 2 years,
That's not so many
you're thinking
times,
only
is
about
it?
10 times. And that's awful. When you think in those terms, you realize you really are in exile.
Does this put a pressure on your relationship?
No, I think it binds us together because we just have one another over here.
In 21, some of the people were saying that they felt it was immoral to emigrate, immoral to leave. Do you have any feelings about that, since you're the one who's left?
In my position, I don't feel that I'm letting England down, because I don't think that England particularly wanted me there doing what I was doing. It had trained me marvellously. I'd gone through a wonderful educational system. Particularly Oxford was a fantastic experience socially. Again, it was a great place to try and develop emotionally. And the academic standards there are absolutely superb. Having trained in a very academic fashion there, and I then went out to try and do something with all that training and found that society just wasn't terribly interested in what I was trying to do. So how can I feel that I'm betraying a country when it doesn't want me to do what it's trained me to do?
The big issue for us at the moment is how we're going to manage to have kids and run two careers. We don't want to miss out on the chance of having a significant career, and we don't want to miss out on the chance to have kids and to be involved with them.
No, but in those early formative years, would you be happy for your children to be brought up by Jackie and Jackie not be able to give them the full attention?
Well, it's not. I mean, that's putting it in a rather strange way. Yes, I mean, I want.
Not just me.
This is an area I pay lip service to the idea of equal shares on this as well, and it remains to be seen whether I would actually live up to my intention.
Yeah, there are several things I think to be said here. That if we both work in academia, that will make life much easier, because as things are at the moment in the States, if you have a computer at home, you can come in to teach and to give office hours to your students, but you can work half of the day from home. But I don't want to be the person left behind while Nick flies in and shares an adult life with his children at college and working. I want to be there too.
Is she difficult?
At times, yes. Whenever we have an argument, she does have a tendency to explode, I suppose. To get really miserable about it and not.
We've only been married 4 years. Anything could happen. We could easily drift apart. There are so many pressures on people. You just have to work at it, and that's why it's important that you have the same ideas, that you want the same kind of life.
When we were in England, our big source of arguments was money. We were always squabbling about money, but that one, mercifully, seems to have gone away pretty well. We still disagree, but it isn't a major source of rows.
I mean, a person with £1 million is not going to be much. He's not going to be more unhappy than a person with £2 million.
I've never really been aiming for money, and that's, curiously enough, why it was such a surprise that it really surprised me when I found that my standard of living mattered to me when I finished university, and I found that I couldn't afford what I've been able to afford as a student. It suddenly caught up with me for the first time in my life that I really did care about how much money I was getting, and it had never occurred to me that I would.
If I could change the world, I'd change it into a diamond.
I'd like to think that, I'm hoping that I might do it at some stage, but I don't really think that I've done anything you can call a great success. I mean, it would seem really ridiculous to any of my friends who watch this if I said, Christ, aren't I a great success? Look at me.
When I first met you, I remember I thought this was very idealistic, but it was rather interesting. When I asked you why you're working on fusion, you said you wanted to save the world. I think that's a bit embarrassing now, but I don't think you'd feel the same way about something that you didn't feel mattered.
That's right. I picked it because I thought it really was something that could be useful to people. Hopefully, eventually. Yes, it would be a disappointment if I didn't achieve very much, but I'm not worrying about it very much. I've just got to go out and make it happen.
I don't think you want to go to university if you want to be an astronaut.
Well, changed my mind completely, of course. I think it was just the imagination that 7-year-old has.
I might be living in cloud cuckoo land, you know. Sort of, Mum and Dad might say, no, son, that's not life. You don't get a job you like. But I'd like to think I could. Teachers are undervalued and underrated. And the system is beginning to crumble. You know, people outside of it don't realise that, but it is. and it's very disillusioning. You know, you don't feel you're getting anywhere. And, of course, the money as well, which, whatever the papers tell you, is abysmal.
Peter left his comprehensive school in Liverpool and at 21 was studying history at London University, living in student digs.
And the facts were that I'm not a particularly intelligent person, just reasonable, I suppose. But I'm not a genius, and I just went to college on 3 reasonable A-levels and just didn't do very much work for 3 years, just did the bare minimum. Turned up to lectures, wrote a few essays, and you get a degree for it, and it's a joke, really.
Once Carolyn Tedford said she loved me. And I'm going to marry her when I grow up.
Doesn't appeal to me at all at the moment. For me, what, I'm just gone 20. I haven't even been abroad yet in my life. So there's no way I'm going to get settled down.
What was it about Peter that you fell in love with?
Who said anything about love? I don't know. We have a very, much the same attitude, much the same general attitude to life, even though we're very different in personality and in the things we like to do.
What is it about his personality that attracted you?
Well, nothing really. Not a great deal.
Peter and Rachel have been married 4 years and met at Teacher Training College. They have just bought their first home, a terraced house in the centre of Leicester. They both have careers. Peter teaches in a comprehensive school, Rachel in a college of further education.
There are 2 risks, either for one of us to follow the other around and therefore perhaps become frustrated and dissatisfied that you didn't initially follow your own line or your own individual wants. Or there's the risk that you take that you perhaps do have to part sometimes for jobs or whatever, or for what you particularly want to do. I think the latter risk is much more worth taking.
So you would be prepared to part?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is an element of compromise, otherwise why get married?
And do you have any plans for children?
Not at the moment, no. I haven't really thought about it seriously.
Why is that?
Well, I suppose because we both got, you know, other things we'd still prefer to be doing. You know, you have children, you know, that immediately limits you. You don't want to be limited yet.
If you choose to have a family, then you also have a responsibility to children. So, you know, it's a very difficult decision. And although I think most liberated men would say that they too are involved in that decision, I think ultimately the responsibility still comes down on the woman's head.
Is Peter liberated?
Well, I think a lot of men such as Peter like to think they're liberated, and I'm not in any way saying that he's not, but I think when it comes to the crunch, you know, the absolute crunch, are you going to give up your job to look after these children? Then I think it more often than not, that decision is made by the woman rather than the man.
If you do have children, would you want them educated in the way that you've been educated?
I don't know how things have changed, but basically you've still got this emphasis on just getting through exams, you know, which isn't really education. Because most of the stuff you come out of school with is absolutely useless. You just don't need it.
So how would you bring them up, educate them?
Well, I don't know. I suppose the easy answer is teach them more relevant things, you know, get them to think for themselves a bit more, which schools don't do enough.
I mean, would you contemplate putting them into the private sector of education?
No, definitely not.
Why?
Well, it's just a principle, you know, that's all there is to it.
And what is the principle?
Well, the principle is that the private schools help to keep the old class system going. You know, they're part of it, they perpetuate it. So I'm certainly not going to be involved in that.
When I came through school at the end, perhaps, of the... Well, let's say that the ideals of the 60s were still there, even though it was the 70s, and that one was always led to believe that there were golden opportunities. But, of course, there aren't. And very much now, people of my generation are beginning to realise what perhaps 16-year-olds know now at 16. I am only just beginning to see that now at 27. That, in fact, you know, there's no such thing as sort of mobility in any sense of the word. You know, it's very difficult to move up.
Do you think you've had as fair an opportunity as other
God,
people?
no. Of course not.
In what way?
Well, other people have got it made for them still, haven't they? They've got it all lined up.
How?
Well, like the public school lads. I don't like to slag off people who are in the programme with me. I'm not slagging them off personally. But I mean, they had it set up for them, didn't they?
It's a big problem. Quite a lot of discussion, I think. The workers do tend to take a few liberties as regards strikes.
I would like to think that democracy is here to stay. Perhaps we haven't got full democracy. In fact, we probably haven't. It's a pretty good system.
Are you surprised by the way England's being governed?
I'm not surprised with the people who govern it at the moment, no.
Why?
I've even stopped being amazed.
Why?
Why? Well, I don't want to get dragged into party politics, you know, but basically this is the most incompetent, uncaring bloody show we've ever had.
Well, if I can't be an astronaut, I'd like to be a bridewell sergeant in the police force, like my dad is.
Do you want to be rich?
I wouldn't mind, no.
I think once I can get myself going, I can work solid, yeah. But it's the motive, which is very hard to acquire.
Yeah. I'm dead lazy.
Well, what are you going to do about it?
Not much. I'm just hard to get, yeah, you know, I'm not the sort of person who can get charged up very quickly. I am really lazy, you know, if I've got things to do, I'd sooner make a cup of tea first and read the paper.
He always looks on the negative side of life before he looks on the positive, whereas perhaps I'm the opposite, and that, in a sense, is an area of conflict, yes. Yeah, a clash of personalities. Yeah.
And how do you deal with that?
Well, as you deal with all people like that, you just give them a good kick and say, you know, wake up to it, you know, that kind of thing.
And do you see any areas of conflict in the future for you? In personality?
No, I don't. Not really, because I think we both appreciate each other's personalities. In fact, it would be quite dull to be exactly the same. I mean, there is something quite exciting in being different, in that it isn't as predictable. You know, we're not along the same track all the time.
On the grass, we play international wrestling. Yeah, that's all. Yes. It's summertime though.
What have been for you the best times?
Tommy Smith scoring the second goal in Rome. Definitely. One of the old times.
Which game was that?
Which game was that? That was the European Cup final, 1977. No, it's hard, you know, after that it was all, nothing else compares with it really, so it's hard to think of anything else. Oh, I'll tell you what was another good moment. That was a group I played with, doing quite well on a few occasions. That was good.
Tell me about that.
That's just a local band. I was until fairly recently. You know, I just played pubs and that, but it was very enjoyable. You know, when you get a good reaction from people, it's just one of the best things you can have, really.
Do you ever get that in your work?
No, God, no.
Why?
Well, what are you asking? You know, they like applaud at the end of each lesson or something.
No, just that excitement, that communication.
No, I don't.
Do you think people change much, or do you think we saw you, the man, and the 7-year-old boy?
I thought for a while that was a bit too simple, but I think it's true, because after that, you know, your barriers begin to go up and you learn how to fend off things, like I was just saying. And obviously when you're 7, you don't think about it, you just come out with it. So, yeah, to a point you reflect that, yeah.
So the boy at 7 is, in a sense, the real you?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, the sort of, the essential Peter Davis.
There were 9 other children filmed in 1963. What of them?
If we did boys all love Jeffrey and we all want to marry him. Yeah. I think I know the one that he likes best, and that's her. No, I wasn't talking today, and Brown sent me out for nothing. I feel like bundling when there's already a fight. If I can't be an astronaut, I think I'll be a coach driver. I read the Financial Times.
What's happened to these children? Where are they and what are they doing? We'll see tomorrow night.
And starts fighting them, I think it serves her right. I know the one that he likes best, and that's her. I think it's not a bad idea to pay for school. I'm going to work in Walworth. I just walk around and see what I can find. I think I'll be a coach driver. I don't like the big boys hitting us and a prefect sending us out for nothing.
I know I'd prefer to be alone, really. And when I said that, I know even now, I meant that. You know, if someone dropped me out in the Sahara Desert, I probably would have been happy, more or less, if you get the point.
Say you had a wife, say you had to eat what they cooked you, and say I don't like greens, well I don't, and say she said you have to eat what you give, so I don't like greens, say she gives me greens, and that's it.
I find it hard to express emotion most of the time, although I'm getting on top of that. Worn out, you know. I mean, just a simple thing to say to sort of Susan, you know, I love you, something like that. I mean, I can tell you about it, but I really haven't been able to say it freely to Sue, you know.
Did he propose to you?
Yeah, it was strange. We went off and bought the engagement ring first. And then I said to him, you haven't really proposed to me. As you can gather, he's sort of very shy.
What was it that you fell in love with? What is it about him?
His helplessness, I suppose. It was the motherly instinct in me to pick him up and cuddle him. And he's also very good looking, I think, but he doesn't agree with me. And in the summer, he's got this cute little bum in shorts.
Paul and Susan live in Melbourne, Australia. 4 years ago, they sold everything they had, bought an old Bedford van, and went on a trip through Western and Central Australia. It took 7 months and they travelled 15,000 miles.
I think it brought us closer together because, you know, we really got to know each other and we relied on each other so much.
I'd never been so relaxed in my life. I felt a lot more confident in myself. Just great fun, really. No pressures or worries, or, you know, everything was forgotten.
When we got to Perth, I was ready to fly home. Being together so much, it was hard. But then we settled down, and we must have settled down really well because I got pregnant and everything, so something must have been going right. I think it's now, like, people like to get back to nature and like to feel that that they aren't living in the 20th century. That to me, it's just like an old dream that you wish it could come true. You know, living next to nature and like pioneers type of thing.
I love the place. You know, I find it hard to put into words really what it is. If you've got the country, you've got bush, outback. You can do more or less anything you want, I think, here. Whether you can do that in England, I don't know.
I think that this is the part we enjoyed the most because we really went out in the middle of nowhere where we had to carry our own petrol and our own water to do us for the 3 or 4 days that we were out that way. And while we were up in Carnarvon, we went and stayed on a sheep station up there with our friend from Melbourne, Bruce. And it was about 1 million acres, just under 1 million acres, the sheep station.
Bruce from Yannery Station, he got a hold of some tails from the roo shooter so we could try kangaroo tail stew.
Yeah, it's a bit rough. We had nothing to throw in it. Yeah. It gave us our own peace of mind that we could settle down and now have a family, that we had done something. We hadn't just been nobodies and lived in suburbia all our lives. We'd done something that we were proud of, that, you know, we'd accomplished on our own.
Do you want this for the children?
I'd love it for the children. I was once told when I was at school that travel could be the best education, and living in conditions where you have to fend for yourself and you have to use your own initiative is very good, and I would like it.
I was going to be a policeman, but I thought how hard it would be to join in.
I just haven't made up my mind yet. I was going to be a phys ed teacher, but one of the teachers told me that you had to get up into university.
At 21, Paul was working as a junior partner for a firm of bricklayers in Melbourne.
I'm not great at bricklaying, right? But if I wasn't good enough and my boss didn't think I was good enough, he would have never have made me a junior partner. I went out on my own as a subcontractor not long after the last show. But then I started with a partner. I organised everything. I bought all the equipment because I didn't want to be dependent on someone else. Things didn't work out between the two of us. He was a bit lazy.
Do you have the right temperament, do you think, to run your own business?
If you're talking about employing other people, I'm not hard enough. I'm a little bit slow with working out things on the job, not particularly the laying of the bricks, but fairly slow thinker when you've got to work something out. I think that'll end up being my job for life, probably. Not that I want it that way, because it gets harder as you get older, I think.
I've got 23 threepenny pieces, and I don't know how many halfpenny pieces I've got now.
3DB 26 past 10 with Doug Ackerley, 15 degrees in Melbourne. At the moment, 25...
They live in a working-class suburb of Melbourne. Paul earns £12,000 a year, owns 2 cars, and bought his house for £35,000 18 months ago.
We're Mr. and Mrs. Average. It's just true. You know, we probably earn an average income. Just an average family.
Oh, good fist away by Russo up towards centre wing. Robertson this time behind.
Susan works part-time as a hairdresser, and they have 2 children, Katie and Robert. Are you ambitious for your children, Paul?
I said something about wanting Robert to be a brain surgeon. That was a joke. I mean, like, if he's a brain surgeon, good and well, but it'd be nice to let them go one step up from us, I think. Put it this way, I hope he's better at schoolwork than I was, so that he's got a choice, you know. Because really, with the education standard I got, I didn't have a choice.
What does university mean?
Paul started his school life at a children's home near London. When he was 8, he emigrated to Australia with his father. Were you happy at the children's home in England?
We didn't mind that, really, because we didn't know what was going on, because we were a bit young then.
What regrets do you have about your education, then?
I didn't work hard enough. I was just very lazy at school. You know, if you're lazy and you don't work at school, you suffer for it. There needs to be a little bit more discipline. If private schools are better, you'd be far better off spending your money sending your kids there than getting a video or new television, swimming pool or something like that, I think.
What else do you want for your kids that you didn't have?
A happier family life, I think. Well, don't get me wrong, it wasn't miserable. I think it could have been better. I think that'd be one of the most important things. My mother and father they separated originally, I think. They eventually got divorced. I went to the boarding school for 1 year and then we immigrated to Australia. My father got remarried.
How'd you get on with your stepmother?
Pretty well, but like I said before, I mean, I'm not just not close, I'm not really close to my father either.
Is that the biggest drop really? Do you have any regrets about the fact that you weren't closer to him when you were younger?
Yeah, I suppose it's all wasted time in a way, I suppose. I mean, he was always there, you know, I could always talk to him, but it was different. We were sort of distant friends. I mean, we always got along fairly well. We didn't see much of each other.
Say hi to Pop. Say hello to Pop. Here's Grandad.
Hey!
Here's Grandad.
He said, actually, to his wife Barbara that he missed out on his own children. He's not going to miss out on these.
Divorce was something new to me until I grew up and knew what the meaning of it all really was. There was no divorces in our family. I think of what Paul's been through. I mean, Paul doesn't say it's very bad, but I wouldn't like that for my children. It does worry me, you know, because it happens so much these days. Only time will tell what happens.
Divorcing your wife, what does it get you? It messes up your own life, messes up your kid's life, your wife's life. I don't think half the people that get divorced even think about it properly.
What mark has it left on you, the fact that you were brought up within a bad marriage?
The only thing I can say that I think might have come from that is just my lack of confidence and being able to show my feelings, really, I suppose.
He is down on himself. He has this excuse where he says, I'm only a bricklayer, it's got nothing to do with me. I don't know why it is. I get really frustrated with him. I want to wring his neck sometimes when he does it. But he's getting better.
So do you feel there's any conflict ahead with Sue wants a job and a career?
What's come up so far since we've been married, we've handled that. Really, I think Susan probably be the best one to be a businesswoman. I stay at home, you know.
I have to push him out the house. Sometimes I think he needs a bit of extra male companionship because being a bricklayer, he only works with one fellow and we don't have a social life with work type of thing. Well, he doesn't because there's only just one person as well as himself. And his basketball, I think he really enjoys it, but he doesn't really let on how much he enjoys it.
I suppose you could see me now when I was 7 in a way. Like, I think it was pretty obvious I wasn't going to be a doctor.
You seem such a sad little boy.
That's me, though. Well, no, I was pretty, long face, sort of thing. I was like that sometimes out here, too. I was always getting knocked about that.
I don't like greens, well, I don't.
The first show I saw was at 21. When I saw him at 7, I just wanted to cry. He seemed so pathetic. I suppose I don't know, it's hard to say. It really made me go to jelly inside, you know, to see him like that.
And do you think it's true that we can see the man in the 7-year-old boy?
Yeah, yes it is, because in that he was a very gentle and not gentle, caring person. Yeah, he's always cared about other people and always been able to work his way, try to give an explanation for saying something he doesn't really want to do, you know, like what if I didn't like to eat my greens and all that sort of thing. I mean, he's always still does that, the what if, and then well, he doesn't really want to do that, so he's trying to talk himself out of it. Yeah, yeah.
Does he eat greens now?
He loves them. He loves them. He loves them.
What do you remember of England?
It seemed to be raining all the time. I wouldn't stake my life on it. But we've got a lot more than what we would have in England from what other people tell us. But there again, when it comes to work, I don't sit down on my backside. I'll go and chase it. So it's hard to say. But I'd say, like, in general, I've probably done better here than what I would have there. The family's going to come first, but I'm still going to be working, and then we'll progress.
I'd love Paul to build me a house, and I know that he'd be happy once he's done it. Something like he's got his children, and then to build his own home, it really would be the icing on the cake for both of us.
I read the Financial Times. I read the Observer and the Times. What do you like about it? Well, I usually look at the headlines and then read about them. About it. Yeah. I like my newspaper because I got shares in it and I know every day what the shares are. Misers like you. No, but on Mondays they don't move up, so I don't look at it.
What's the point of the programme? Is the point of the programme is to reach a comparison? I don't think it is. Because we're not necessarily typical examples.
I think that's what people seeing the programme might think.
Yes.
Falsely.
I mean, they tend to typecast us.
So everything we say, they'll think, oh, that's a typical result of the public school system.
Yes. I mean, do you think there's any truth in the ideas behind the programme, that certain people have more options than others?
It's certainly true that more people know they have more options or imagine they have. I think in practical terms, the difference in numerical number of options isn't that great.
But the mere knowledge creates an option in itself.
Yes.
So I think we do have more options. And it is undesirable, but it's very difficult to correct.
I don't think it is undesirable at all. I think what's undesirable is people who have had options don't take best advantage of them.
When I leave the school, I'm going to College Court. And then I will be going to Westminster Boarding School if I pass the exam. And then we think I'm going to Cambridge and Trinity Hall.
John went to Westminster School, and at 21 was in his final year reading law at Christ Church, Oxford.
I do believe parents have a right to educate their children as they think fit. And I think someone who works on the assembly line in some of these car factories and earning a huge wage could well afford to send their children to private school if they wanted to. Just because some sorts of people perhaps don't put that as high on their priorities as, you know, having a smart car or something.
I'm going to Charterhouse. And after that, Trinity Hall, Cambridge.
Andrew went to Charterhouse and read law at Trinity College, Cambridge.
And you can never be sure of leaving your children any worldly goods, but at least you can be sure that once you've given them a good education, that's something that no one can take away.
When I leave school, I'm going to the Dragon School. I might. And I might go to, after I might go to Charterhouse, Marlborough. And I can't remember all other places, but because Mummy's got so many, but there's some of them.
What about university, Charles?
I might go to Oxford.
Charles went to Marlborough, but didn't make it to Oxford. Instead, he went to Durham University.
I'd say I'm pleased I didn't, because there's very much sort of, certainly from Marlborough, prep school, Marlborough, Oxbridge, conveyor belt, you get shoved out at the end. And when you go to Oxbridge, and it's obviously not true in all cases, but I think for the majority, they mix with the same people as they were with at school and so on.
When they were 21, we asked them what they thought they would be doing at 28. John.
Might be at the bar.
Doing what?
Perhaps chancery practice.
How do you see your life at 28? What do you want for yourself then?
I'd quite like to be married by then.
John has just announced his engagement. He is a successful barrister in the Chancery Division of the High Court. At 21, these were his thoughts about his career.
Law sort of interests me. I think it's sort of good life. It's hard work, but you sort of, when you get to a certain eminence. You know, you take the work you want and you take the holidays you want, and you don't really dance to anyone's tune, all of which quite suits me.
And what about Charles?
I'd say probably scribbling away in some basement for some London newspaper or something.
Charles did scribble away for an East London newspaper. He moved on after a year and joined the BBC, where he now works as an assistant producer. And Andrew, what did he want?
I'd like to be a solicitor, and also fairly successful.
Andrew is a solicitor, working for a large firm in the city.
What qualities do you think it needs to be successful?
Well, you have to have a legal ability in my business, obviously, and you have to have a sort of bedside manner as far as your clients are concerned. Because there's no good being brilliant if you can't communicate with your clients.
What do you think about girlfriends at your age?
And
Tell me what you think.
I've got one, but I don't think much of her. The girls never do what the boys want them. They always start playing with dolls when the boys want to play rough and tumble with them. It's quite true.
I don't think I financially come from the same background. Andrew didn't go for a haughty Deb. He went for a good Yorkshire lass. But, I mean, obviously he knew what he wanted.
Andrew and Jane were married 18 months ago.
I think I'm probably quite down to earth, and I tend to be less extravagant than maybe some women are. I don't go out and buy lots of expensive dresses. I just go out and buy one or two.
And even better, pay for them.
They spend their weekends in the Sussex countryside, where they are converting an old barn which they bought with financial help from their parents. They plan to live in it permanently when they start a family. During the week, they have a flat in London, and Jane has a full-time job as a secretary.
I think it's not a bad idea to pay for schools, because if we didn't, schools would be so nasty and crowded. Yes. So do I think so. Yeah. And the people in the schools wouldn't, and the man in charge of the school would get very angry because he wouldn't be able to pay all the masters if he didn't get any money.
Well, I've never really experienced the state system, but I think you get a better level of education if you can go to a private school.
Do you think it's bad that people like you opt out of the state system?
Well, there are really two counter-arguments. First of all is the argument that people should have the choice if they've earned the money to spend it. And then the other argument is that if we all went to the same sort of schools, those schools would probably be better because those people who had influence would do their utmost to make sure they were better if they had to send their children there. Whereas they just look back and don't particularly care what happens in the state system.
And what do you feel about that?
Well, I think probably the latter choice is fairly impractical. So I suppose that one has to continue with the idea of everyone having a choice.
Once I had a talk to Greville. He was in my house, and I asked Sir if he could put him out of my house because he was always getting minuses.
Looking back on our film of us at 7, certainly I was a fairly precocious little brat, and I hope I'm no longer.
Do you still read the Financial Times?
No.
I don't think much of the accents. Neither do I. Neither do I. But I don't prevent me liking them.
Yes, and that mustn't be laid there. I should, quite quietly, it's a very nonchalant little theme.
Well, yes, I do feel I've had the best of everything as far as education is concerned. But, I mean, you know, to get here, I had to work very hard.
But you don't deny you've had a silver spoon.
I think anyone who goes to a really good school has had a leg up. But, I mean, I wouldn't say I'd been unduly privileged if I missed the exam to my school and had to go to sort of grotty public school. I would have thought I'd had any advantage at all. Yes, I must say, all this talk about opportunities, it's something I did slightly object to in the programmes. We were shown at the age of 7 outlining sort of the academic sort of career that most of us did in fact pursue. Each sentence ended up, John is at Westminster, Andrew is at Charterhouse and everything, implying that we just sailed through, merely manifesting an intention at the age of 7. We didn't show the sleepless nights, the sort of poring over our books, the sort of, all the sweat and toil that got us to university and things. It was presented as if it was just, part of some indestructible birthright that we went to all these places, and I thought that was unfair. It didn't show us sort of having to do beastly jobs in the holidays, to make ends meet and things. It didn't give a very real sort of impression.
Do you want to be rich?
Well, yes, because I don't want to be tied down to the dullness of an everyday job. I want to be able to have enough money so I can indulge in things that might interest me, like collecting paintings.
I do believe in a sort of ordered and structured society, and I think, we're not exactly alive for very long, and we've each got our own job to do and our own little position to be in. Some people have a better time than others, but it doesn't mean because you sweep the streets you're any less valuable than someone who's running a huge corporation. I mean, not everyone can be at the top, but as long as people are happy in what they're doing, that's, I think, the greatest good that can be. And this is what worries me about these new sort of invidious sort of class attitudes that certain sort of subversive elements are introducing, based on envy and things.
John declined to be interviewed at 28. He felt satisfied with what he had said in the previous films and had nothing more to add.
The rich children always make fun of poor children, I think. Yes. Yes, they say, oh, look at that lovely little sissy over there. Yes, and they throw things at them.
I don't particularly want to be rich, but I'd like to have enough money.
Well, what do you mean by enough?
Well, enough to have a nice house and be able to send the children to a private school if you want to.
I really don't see how one's life can be a failure. In that, if I became a journalist and got sacked at 30, it's probably because I'd grown out of it, or I'd changed, so I was no longer suitable, so therefore I'd find something else which I'd find, I enjoyed and which my talents were suited to.
Charles has found a career suited to his talents. At the BBC, he makes documentary films. He decided not to take part in this film.
I'm quite happy living in the society that I am living in. It's a shame that more people can't get the opportunities that I've had, and I'm not sure how one deals with that.
But you've been lucky, haven't you? What about those who haven't been so lucky?
Absolutely. I have been very lucky.
Well, we pretend we've got swords, and we make the noise of the swords fighting, and when somebody stabs us, we go, ah!
I think if you're healthy and have good friends, you can get on perfectly well. But everybody would like to be rich.
Neil was brought up in a Liverpool suburb, went to comprehensive school, and dropped out of Aberdeen University after one term. At 21, he was working as a casual labourer on a building site in London.
I came to London and I contacted an agency for squatters, and they were able to give me the address of somebody who was able to help people who were looking for accommodation in the London area. And by a process of chasing people around, I eventually managed to find this place here. I think in questions of squatting, a bit of humanity is more important than vague rules about who can live where.
But you've kicked against the stability that's...
I don't think I ever had any stability, to be quite honest. I can't think of any time in my life when I ever did. I don't think I've been kicking against anything. I think I've been kicking in mid-air the whole of my life. Last 3 years I have, in fact, been unemployed, but travelling quite a bit, mostly in Britain, been abroad once or twice, but not as extensively as I used to do.
Thanks. Shall I put the luggage in here, or do you want it in the back?
I live off money from Social Security, which does me for my rent and my food. I've been moving about a bit between different places, really. I'm a bit unsettled, but I'm very shortly moving to live in digs.
For the last 7 years, Neil has been moving around Britain. He spent the summer on a farm in North Wales, and when we found him, he had just arrived in the Western Highlands of Scotland. And do you think people like you who live off the state are scrounging?
No. If the state didn't give us any money, it would probably just mean crime. And I'm glad I don't have to steal to keep myself alive. I do it simply because I don't want to be without any money at all. If the money runs out, well, then for a few days there's nowhere to go to. And that's all you can do. I simply have to find the warmest shed I can find.
Neil rents whatever kind of home he can find.
The last job I had was cooking in a youth hostel, some cleaning work as well. And I was the only person in the hostel who could speak French, so I had to do a bit of that.
Do you eat every day?
Yes. I'm eating better now than I was at times when I was in Aberdeen, and those days, sometimes I really was short of food.
Well, I'm going to take people to the country and sometimes take them to the seaside, and I'll have a big loud speaker in the motor coach and tell them whereabouts we are and what we're going to do and what the name of the road is and all about that.
There's a lot more to do in the mountains than there would be in a suburb or in a city centre. What I've found here, in fact, is that you don't talk about things like the weather, because the weather is all around. Everybody knows it's been raining, so you don't talk about the weather. That makes good sense to me. I'm not the sort of person who can go into a pub, sit down with a drink, and listen to the jukebox and talk a lot of rubbish. A lot of people find that very relaxing. But if I'm going to talk to somebody, A, I have to be able to hear myself speaking, and B, I have to be talking about something that actually has a meaning. I'm not trying to denigrate the way that most people relax, but I can't do that. So I'm lost in a noisy pub. I'll sit in a quiet corner of a quiet pub, and then I'll want to talk about literature or something like that, which not everybody will want to.
How do people regard you here?
Well, I'm still known as an eccentric, as I have been since about the age of 16 or so.
Do the days seem long for you?
They can do.
Do you have any friends anywhere?
I have some good friends still in England.
I don't think I need to go to university because I'm not going to be a teacher.
I moved up to a comprehensive school. I found it much bigger, of course, and I found it hard to settle into at first.
I did make an application to Oxford, but I didn't get in, and well, I think that's in the past now, and I don't know whether I would have been any happier at Oxford. It always had been a dream to get into Oxford, I think because people had encouraged me and because I knew famous people having been to Oxford. That is still something that occasionally I think about and think, yes, I know I could have done well.
I've been playing since I started at the comprehensive school since the first year.
I don't think I was half as clever as I was told I was. I think, unfortunately, I grew up against a background of people of pretty average intelligence. I don't think I went to a school that was full of bright people. If this had been the case, I don't think I would have been so big-headed. I know I went to university expecting to be something of a genius and found that this wasn't the case at all. Which is a good thing for me. I mean, it's very good that I didn't come to that opinion. I don't think I was so much clever. I just think I was quite enthusiastic, particularly when it came to A-levels. I was enthusiastic about the subjects I was studying, and therefore, with the help of good teaching, I was able to get good results.
What were your results?
Well, I did well enough. I'm not going to boast.
No, but tell me the fact. Well, how many O-levels and how many A-levels did you get?
Well, I got 10 O-levels, and then I got 4 A-levels.
And did you get good grades within them?
Yes, the grades were quite satisfactory. Well, I was only taking university seriously for a matter of a couple of months, 2 or 3 months. Maybe I went to the wrong university, or maybe university life didn't suit me. Either way, I felt a very great need to get out of the system.
No formal education can prepare anybody for life. Just only life can prepare you for what comes. And sooner or later, you're going to have to cross certain barriers. And I don't think you ever cross those at school or at university. You come across the problem of mixing with other people, but the real problem, the real problem of becoming a success in the world is one you have to tackle yourself.
On the grass, we play international wrestling. Yeah, that's all. It's summertime though. Yes, only when we can go on the grass.
Being in set one, it's very, very hard to keep up with the leaders. I never have a time to relax at all.
I don't know what sort of stumbling blocks should be put in a child's way to get him used to living in the outside world. Because I think maybe this is something that was wrong in my upbringing. I didn't have enough obstacles to get over.
I still set myself high standards if I'm doing something I want to do. But that's important. That's not too bad a thing.
But you talked also about not having enough obstacles in your life. How do you feel about that now?
It's funny that, isn't it? I can't remember saying that, but now I do remember. And it seems that the whole situation is reversed.
In what way?
Well, now I'm a free. I've got a free hand, but I've got nothing to do with myself. So.
In the winter, if you lived in the country, well, it was just all wet and there wouldn't be anything for miles around. And you get soaked if you tried to go out, and there's no shelter anywhere except in your own house. But in the town, you can go out on wet, wintry days because you can always find somewhere to shelter because there's lots of places.
I don't think I've been typical of the environment in which I lived. I might still have been unemployed, but what my background has given me is a sense of just being part of a very impersonal society. The suburbs force this kind of feeling upon somebody. The most you can hope to achieve is to have the right to climb into a suburban train 5 or 10 times a week and just about stagger back for the weekend. The least is just unemployment. Great, thanks. I just needed just a nice woolly pair. Yeah. Great.
What other things about modern society turn you off?
The cheap satisfaction in so many things. The aimlessness. But I think the total lack of thought is at the bottom of it. Nobody seems to know where they or anybody else is going, and nobody seems to worry. You finish the week, you come home, you plug into the TV set for the weekend, and then you manage to get back to work on Monday. And it seems to me that this is just a slow path to total brainwashing. And if you have a brainwashed society, then you're heading towards doom. There's no question about that.
It would be pretty tough to convince most people that what you have here, the way you live, the way you look, is better than a suburban life.
Well, I don't want to convince anybody. I know it is. You see, what I look like isn't necessarily what I feel like. I'm not claiming that I feel as though I'm in some sort of nirvana, but I'm claiming that if I was living in a bedsit in suburbia, I'd be so miserable, I'd feel like cutting my throat. And so there is a slight difference.
When I go home, I come in and Mummy gives me a cup of tea, and then I go out and play. And when it starts to get dark, I come in again and put on TV.
I don't think I was really taught any sort of policy of living at all by my parents. This is probably their biggest mistake. That I was just left to fend for myself in a world which they seemed completely oblivious of. And I found that even when I tried to discuss problems which were facing me in school, my parents didn't seem to be aware of the nature of the problem.
We made up quite well after
the bad times we went through when I was in my early 20s. There are still awkward patches, but I think suddenly, perhaps almost mutually, it dawned upon us that we were all making mistakes, and also that some of the things we did couldn't be helped. And I think now, perhaps the greatest thing we've achieved is we know when to say nothing, and we know when to do nothing, and we know when to be tolerant of each other, and that's a great thing. That's really tremendous. What I'd like most of all would be to be able to do something for my parents when they're older, to be there when the time is necessary.
Were they upset with what you said about them in the last programme?
I'm sure they were. But I don't wish I hadn't said it, because I said exactly what was going through my mind. I think I was very venomous, and I think had I been in an easier situation myself, and had I had less worries myself at the time, I would have been perhaps a little kinder. I had to take out my anger on somebody, and I think it came out of my parents. But perhaps unconsciously, a lot of what I said was what I did feel underneath. But I don't want the scar to remain.
When I get married, I don't want to have any children because they are always doing naughty things and making the whole house untidy.
I always told myself that I would never have children.
Why?
Because children inherit something from their parents. And even if my wife were the most high-spirited and ordinary and normal of people, the child would still stand a very fair chance of being not totally full of happiness because of what he or she will have inherited from me.
Coloured people, we don't like them very much. No, it sounds like ghostly coloured people. You think of a purple person with red eyes and yellow feet, and you can't really think of what they really look like.
What goes through your mind when you look at saw those two films when you were at 7, Bright and Perky and...
I find it hard to believe that I was ever like that, but there's the evidence. I wonder why I was like that. I wonder what it was inside me that made me like that. And I can see even at 14 then I was beginning to get more subdued, and I was putting a lot more thought into what I was saying, to a ridiculous degree. And probably when I was 7, I don't know, I lived in a wonderful world where everything was sensation and I could be happy like this, I could be miserable the next minute. I know at 7 years old I was fascinated by everything around me. The colours of things and things that were funny, sounds that things made. I had, if you like, idiosyncratic views about things that other people hadn't even thought about. I remember I thought that coloured people had purple noses and green legs or something like that. Perhaps I'm still looking for it's difficult to explain. So perhaps I'm still looking for the green nose and this sort of thing. And I know that they're still there. I know that when you look at a human being, that there's more to that person than just a robot.
When I grow up, I want to be an astronaut. But if I can't be an astronaut, I think I'll be a coach driver.
This is probably linked up with the fact now that I want to travel. I mean, my thoughts haven't really changed differently, so I definitely would like to be a coach driver now.
I suppose yes, well, I would like to be somebody in a position of importance, and I've always thought this. But I don't think I'm the right sort of person to carry the responsibility for whatever it is. I always thought, well, I'd love to be, possibly even love to be in politics or something like this. But I suppose that I'd probably find that just as tedious as all the other jobs I've done. So. All the things I always thought I could do. I could give lectures on erudite subjects that I'd read all about, or I could I could work in the theatre, perhaps lighting or directing a show.
And is all that lost to you?
Does seem to be, yes. I don't see any way out. I've thought of everything I possibly could. It seemed to me for a long time that getting a reliable job and a nice place to live would be the solution. Well, I haven't succeeded. I can't see any immediate future at all. But here I am. I've still got clothes on my back, not particularly nice clothes, but I've still got them. I have a place to go to. I have some prospects of work. I'm still applying for jobs. I haven't given up. I think I'm lucky because I've met so many people. I've worked with people who have no future whatsoever, for whom life is finished completely at 50, and yet they still have to somehow keep going. And I don't want it to seem that I'm complaining too much. I feel, especially sometimes when I'm on my own, that I'm losing touch with the way other people live.
Do you worry about your sanity?
Other people sometimes worry about it.
Like who?
As I said, I sometimes can be found behaving in an erratic fashion. I sometimes get very frustrated, very angry, for no apparent reason, for a reason which won't be apparent to other people around me. It's happened from time to time.
Have you had treatment?
I've occasionally had to see doctors, yes. I haven't had any treatment.
And what have they said to you?
I've had a lot of advice, but you know, the best medicine is kind words, and it usually comes from somebody who has nothing to do with the medical profession, which isn't to say that doctors can't be very helpful. But really, the thing a sick person wants is to be away from doctors as soon as possible.
What did they say was wrong with you?
Well, I have always had a nervous complaint. I had it since I was 16. It was responsible for my leaving university and for some of my difficulties with work. But as you know, you can't afford to go around looking depressed. That in itself is bad enough.
So can you lick it?
It remains to be seen.
Yes, I'd say I believed in God.
Are you religious?
Well, I go to church with my parents on Sundays.
I don't know even now whether I do believe in God or not. I've thought an awful lot about it, actually, and I still don't know. But still, this was absolutely certain. If one was to survive in the world, one had to believe in God. I don't think of God as a creature, but I think of something, time, destiny, which is regulating everybody's affairs, and which you cannot fight against and you cannot order about.
And how's he been treating you?
Well, I said to somebody last week that I preferred the Old Testament to the New Testament, because in the Old Testament, God is very unpredictable. And that's, I think, how I've seen him in my life. Sometimes very benevolent, sometimes seemingly needlessly unkind.
If we come back in 7 years, how would you like us to find you?
In a job from which I was getting satisfaction, married, probably with children, with a good salary, enough to as I said before, to be able to live fairly comfortably, and with friends whom I could contact when I wanted to. I'm a lot happier now than I was 7 years ago. I'm more content. I don't have such dreadful yearnings. I don't feel so hopelessly as if everything is against me.
Do you think, what a waste?
Yeah, perhaps.
Why should you accept this? You're better than all this, aren't you?
No, I'm not better than anything or anybody. I'm just somebody with my own particular difficulties, my own particular obstacles to surmount. And everybody else is doing exactly the same thing.
If we did all love Jeffrey and we all want to marry him, I think I know the one that he'd like.
Jackie, Lynn, Susan. After primary school, they separated, and at 14, Lynn was at grammar school, and Jackie and Susan were at comprehensive.
We had a teacher at school that his favourite ploy was, all you girls want to do is walk out, get married, have babies and push a pram down the street with a fag hanging outside your mouth.
Women are expanding into so many different areas now that it must be getting easier. And I mean,
Susan has been married 4 years and has a son of 2. Her husband, Billy, is a gas fitter, and they live in a council house in the East End of London.
75.
I'm lucky, I expect, because I still manage to do my own thing. I've got a husband who lets me do what I want, and a mum who helps me out. You know, and I do a little part-time job, which is enough for me, because I don't think I could cope with a full-time job, and I wouldn't want to, personally.
60.
Jackie was married at 19, and her husband is a decorator. She works for an insurance company in the city.
I certainly don't want to stay in the position I am at the moment forever and ever. But how ambitious, I'm not really sure. It tends to change as you get older, so just got to wait and see, really.
Lynn also married at 19. Her husband works for the post office, and they have 2 daughters. They moved out of the East End to Kent 18 months ago.
I'm going to work in Woolworths.
At 21, Lynn was working in a mobile library in Tower Hamlets. She's still there.
Have I stamped yours? Yes. Yes? I've not stamped yours. Sleeping Beauty. Teaching children the beauty of books and watching their faces as books unfold to them is just fantastic. To work with children of that age, you've got to love them. And I love children.
Well, I know he is her and he loves her. I don't. I love him.
I don't think I'd get married too early. I'd like to have a full life first and
like to
meet
enjoy
people
myself before
before you go commit yourself to a family.
If you think that getting married, as far as we're concerned, is a case of going to work, come home, cook tea for hubby, going to bed, getting up, going to work, you're totally mistaken.
Did you meet enough men before you decided who to marry?
I've been married a year and a couple of months. You do think, Christ, what have I done?
See, I've still got my
And I'm being honest about it. And Russ thinks the same. You think, at times, you think, Christ, what have I done? It is a partnership marriage, yes. We married, say ominously, young, but because we wanted to go out and have fun together and grow together.
I'm not sure I would recommend it. I think but again, you're generalising. I mean, if I would say on average, 19 is probably too young.
I've had a good time up until I was 24. And I think that to get married young, there must be things that you miss. You must miss that crucial stage of being yourself, because the minute you get married, you're no longer a single being, you're a partnership, and that should be the idea behind it.
If I could, I would have 2 girls and 2 boys. Yes, I would.
And what about you, Jackie?
My mum, because she got 5 girls, she had 7 years bad luck. That's why she's got 5 girls.
I'd like to be able to have a happy family. I mean, I know that's not possible to be happy all the time, but as much of the time that was possible.
Go through there, that's the nursery.
Got any plans?
Oh, do me a favour.
At 21, Jackie had moved into a new house. She has decided not to have any children.
Basically, I would say because I'm far too selfish. I enjoy doing what I want, when I want and how I want, and certainly at the moment I
can't see any way around that. And it's not to say that that's a forever decision. Some people can make it work. I just don't think I could.
You don't think you're missing out on what they have, their stake in the future?
No. That's a terrible way to put it, you know. I mean, that makes you sound like you're saying, right, great, we're going to have a child, and that's us. I do feel to a degree that, yes, I am missing out, but I also think that I get far more pleasure, or I'm gaining far more experience by not having that tie.
When I got married, the primary reason was because I wanted to have a child. The two, to me, went together. I can understand Jackie's decision because I think there's still a lot of pressure put on young married couples to have children as though it's expected of them, and I think it's all wrong. It's just a personal decision that everyone's entitled to make. And knowing what it does to your life, I can fully understand someone who decides not to.
What would you do if you had lots of money? About me, £2. I would buy myself a new nice house, you know, one that's all nice and comfy.
Do you get depressed by money problems?
No, why? Why should you? If you can manage on what
to
you've
get
got.
depressed over money.
It's so easy to. But why should you? Why
when I
bother
reach
about
the
it?
18th day of the month and my mortgage is due on the 20th and there's nowhere near enough money in there, I get depressed about it, obviously. What money?
It was hard, first of all, when I gave up work from having a fairly high salary to nothing was hard. But you get used to it, whatever your circumstances are. You live in them, you get used to them and you cope. Everybody does.
I didn't feel like going to a grammar school. I just, you know, comprehensive school, it just seemed more friendly, you know, and at the time that is, but now, you know, they're different.
Grammar school's fantastic.
You say so.
We've had that it doesn't scratch the bottom. Why am I using wooden spoon, please, to stir this saucepan?
I don't think anybody influenced me. It was a conscious decision. Obviously, the decision was discussed at home, but it was always in me to go.
There may come a time, perhaps later on, when I'll regret not having... We're talking about examination results, really. That's what it boils down to. And I got some examination results, some O-levels, CSEs, whatever. Didn't need them for the jobs I decided to do, so...
With this school, we do metalwork and woodwork, and the boys do cookery. And we get a share of everything, sort of thing.
Most parents would want every advantage they can get for their child. Now, whether you class going to grammar school as an advantage is dependent on your entire outlook. If you don't class it as an advantage, then you're not going to push that.
My mum left me, she knew I could go to grammar, and I decided that I didn't want to, and she encouraged me in the choice that I made. And right or wrong, that was my choice, as much as I was capable of making a decision. And I enjoyed myself.
My father had a reasonably good education. He never went to the local comprehensive, but at the same time, I don't think he was too worried which way I decided to go. I think he probably knew me better than I did, which was that basically I was a very lazy person academically, and I think I would have found grammar school push.
Do you have any regrets about it?
No. You can only have regrets about things if you're not happy with the way you are.
You look at the old film and you see yourselves at 7. Do you think you've changed?
No, I don't think I have, really.
We're the same people as we were then.
I was always chatty, Jackie was always chatty, and Lynn was always the quieter one.
Is that depressing or frightening to think that we're all set by the time we're 7 and that's it?
I don't think one's set by that age. You progress, but the overall character is there to come up.
I think the basics are there.
Yeah, the basics are there.
Why is it that you three haven't changed so much, do you think?
You'll probably never know that.
I think
perhaps we've grown up.
We've all had a stable background with stable relationships all the way through. I mean...
The same people are there now that were there then.
The poor, if you don't help them, they'll sort of die soon, wouldn't they?
Where some people are just born into rich families and they're lucky.
I don't see why they should have the luck when people have worked all their lives and haven't got half as much as what they have. It just don't seem fair.
I've had the opportunities in life that I've wanted.
I say I've
You've
had
made.
more opportunities.
Yeah, you've made.
So you three working class girls don't feel bitter about a society that maybe gives one strata of it more opportunities than another?
No.
Not bitter.
Not at all.
I don't even think, to be honest, we consciously think about it until this programme comes up once every 7 years. I really don't think we even think about it. I do not sit there thinking, oh, he actually was born into money. He's had more opportunity. I mean, it just doesn't even cross my mind.
I think that we all could have gone in any way that we wanted to at the time within our capabilities. I mean, we chose our own jobs. We were able to choose our own jobs quite freely.
If you've got a comfortable background, then perhaps it can make life easy. But I think you've also seen within this programme that it doesn't always work that way.
In some respects, I think that the boys and Susie didn't have such an open choice as we had. It was mapped out from such an early age as to where they were going, and they had to live up. It's a hard thing living up to parental expectations.
Before I'm old enough to get to job, I just walk around and see what I can find.
Was going to be a film star, but now I'm going to be an electrical engineer. Just more to reality, really.
I often say I'm saving to settle down with Yvonne. And then I think to myself, I might buy a car instead. Since 21, I've got married, had a couple of kids. And, well, I don't think there's anybody else I could have ever married except Yvonne. It gives me my life, really, because we're together, we have the children and everything.
And what is it with Yvonne that you fell in love with?
Her nature, really. She's always quiet and thoughtful, except when she's laughing.
Tommy, do you have any girlfriends?
Well, not many.
What do you think about girls?
Well, not much.
When you decided to have the 5, did you want to have them close together?
Yeah, because if you separate each kids, you say one is 15 and one is 6, I mean, there's such an age gap that they could never get on. They never grow up together, they won't know each other.
Why did you want to have a large family?
Well, I wouldn't really call it a large family.
Well, I think it is large by average standards.
Yeah. We just wanted 5 kids, you know, we got exactly what we want, 3 boys and 2 girls. So, I mean...
You gonna have any more?
No, it's exactly that. It's a handful, you know.
Do you push your kids at school? Those that go to school already?
No, I don't push them. I encourage them on what they come home, when they come home, and I come home in the evening, they tell me what they've done. You know, if they've done anything bad, I tell them where they've gone wrong. And if they want, what's the word? Not encouragement, praise for what they've done, then I'll give it to them if they've done well, yeah.
Do you see maybe your kids are going to be smarter than you are?
Oh, yeah, there's a couple of them already look like they're going to be smarter.
And how are you going to handle that?
Keep them on my side.
They say, where's your father then? You know, when your mum's out at work, instead of your father. And I just tell them I ain't got one.
What effect has that had on you?
Well, I don't think it's had any effect on me, because what you don't have, you don't miss. And
20 years ago, when I was born, you know, an illegitimate child, you know, that's something that's only whispered about. People, you know, feel strongly about it in those days, but nowadays it's not a serious matter The serious point is whether you stay with somebody or you leave them.
What would you like to give your children that you never had?
They've got everything then. They've even got what I never had. So,
which is what?
A father, isn't it? So, I mean, they've had everything.
I feel like bundling when there's already a fight. I always feel like that.
Simon was brought up in a children's home. He went back to live with his mother when he was 13.
I was at a boarding school and I liked the discipline. That gave me a kind of freedom.
And do you encourage that with your children?
Yeah, I do encourage that. They go to bed the same time every night and they get up round about the same time every morning. And they go to school the same time every day. You know, it's good to have discipline and routine.
But what about in your life? Do you think there's been too much routine?
No, not really. I mean, somebody else might think so, yeah, but I enjoyed having a routine. I enjoyed knowing where I was going to be next and what I had to do next, because that sort of relieved me from responsibilities.
At 21, he was working in the freezer room of Wall's Sausages in London. How do you see the future as far as work goes?
Well, I know I can't stay at Wall's forever. I mean, it's just not me. I couldn't stay there for that long. My mind would go dead. How long have I been there? About 8 or 9 years or something like that. There's a lot of people I know there now. When I first went there, I mean, it's getting to know people. Now that I've been there so long, I mean, I know practically everybody who's in there. Now, I don't think your mind could go dead because I've got a lot to talk about every day I go to work, you know? There's always somebody says something smart, you know?
I just wonder, be just like anybody else, you know. Nothing too marvellous.
I feel okay just getting on with life, just sort of keeping up. But I know if I really wanted to, I could get on. Yeah, I only take a little spark in me to do it. I'm quite happy to stay there. Doesn't look like it's going to close down, so I mean, better the devil you know, innit?
And do you never feel you should be doing better jobs than these? Aren't you worth more than this?
No, I haven't really. I suppose I just like hard work. I don't know. But it's never really sort of worried me. I suppose it should, but it just hasn't. Not really interested in moving up the scale.
Why?
I don't need the hassle of being a charger, manager or whatever.
I had one dream when all the world was on top of me and everything was on it and I just about got out and everything flew up in the air. It all landed on my head.
See, I mean, everybody's got the same start. They've got a little bit of grey matter in their head and it depends how they use it and for what purpose. Yeah? If you're just gonna be like me, take it easy through life, okay, yeah. If you're gonna be somebody who really wants to go far, well, you have to push yourself. If you don't push yourself, you won't go up.
And do you want to go far, push yourself?
No, I want to get through life nice and easy.
Simon and his family live in a council flat in Southall, London.
What do you think about rich people?
Well, not much.
Tell me about them.
Well, they think they can do everything without you doing it as well.
Rich people, they have all different things, have everything they want, whereas poor people, they don't have nothing, and they know they haven't got nothing, and so they know they're missing something.
What are you missing?
Well, I'm missing a bike and a fishing rod. And
Are you envious of people who have a lot of money?
No, I may have been, but I can't envy them now because I've got what I want, so it's nothing that anybody can give me that's going to make me any happier. I could save for months and then just one day just go out and spend it, and that's it. I would feel quite happy about it. I wouldn't worry about getting the next penny. If you don't plan anything, you'll never get by anyway. You could have millions and you won't know what you're going to do with it. If you just keep spending it, you have to know what you're spending.
everybody's got to get used to knowing coloured people And coloured people in turn have got to get used to being with white people. Because if either side doesn't work properly, then no side will work properly.
They're just the same as me, aren't they?
I mean, do you think it's hard being a black man in English society today?
It depends what you want, innit? If you just want to live in the society, no, it's not hard. If you want to fight the society, yes, it would be hard.
And have you ever wanted to fight it?
Not really, no. There's no need for it.
I've been to Madame Tussauds with my mum and the planetarium as well.
Do you want to go abroad?
Yeah. I'd like to go to Mallorca. Take a couple of weeks out there from everything. Relax myself.
I think I might like to sort of go out of this country, probably just for a holiday first, somewhere, anywhere, and then sort of think about settling down somewhere else. I mean, I could have got a job in some foreign parts, working for an packing firm. But when it came down to it, I didn't want to move. I didn't want to leave. So, I mean, I probably got a very narrow view of life because I don't really like travelling.
Does that worry you that you have that narrow view?
Worry me? You keep asking me if things worry me. No.
Does it concern you then?
Yeah, that's a different word. No, not really. It doesn't really concern me.
And what do you want for the future?
Watching my kids grow up, and when they're growing up, maybe seeing their children grow up as well.
Looking at some of the earlier films, it would seem that maybe you had a sad childhood. I mean, you didn't have a dad and you didn't have a lot of material things.
No, I wouldn't really call that a sad life. It's a different life to somebody with everything or thinks they have everything, but I mean, it doesn't matter if you've got everything, all the material things in the world. I mean, you're not going to be happy anyway because you still want the next thing down the road.
At the end of their very special day in London, after their trip to the zoo and the party, we took our children to an adventure playground where they could do just what they liked. Those from the children's home set about building a house. There's Nicholas. And Tony. Andrew. And Bruce. John. Susie. Jackie and her friends. Give me a child until he is 7, and I will give you the man. This has been a glimpse of Britain's future.